Emergency workers are furious because, once again, the state has failed them. And a man who violently bashed two paramedics has walked free, no jail time. Several times now, the government has said jail would be mandatory in these circumstances. It isn't. It didn't work. They fiddled it and fixed the legislation. They said it's failed again. Now, really, how hard can it be? It's got to be fixed. The Parliament and the people want thugs who attack emergency workers put into jail. No option. The government says it wants that too, but hasn't been able to deliver. We don't just need an appeal in this latest case, and we do need an appeal. We need legislation fixed again. We need it fixed to make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm not a huge fan of mandatory sentencing, but I've read the magistrate's decision here, and I'm certainly not a fan of the way the law's drafted that allows this man, James Haberfield, to avoid jail. I think the police prosecution's been found a bit wanting here. Yes, the attacker's got problems in his life, but he also chose to pump himself full of various drugs, which aggravated those problems. And he's the attacker. The victims should be paramount here. The system has cared for the crook and insulted the victim. That is the simple problem here. The victims came second. In the studio with me, the young woman who was so badly bashed that night. And remember, she was trying to help this bloke. We won't use her surname. Monica, good morning.
Good morning.
And the head of Ambulance Victoria, the boss, Tony Walker, himself a former paramedic. Tony, good morning.
Morning, Neil.
Monica, you first. Now, what you're doing here today is tough. I know you'd probably rather be just about anywhere else. So I want to give you the opportunity to say what you want to. Why are you here? What's your point? What do you want to say?
I think it's not just about me. After the court case yesterday, I think it's for every paramedic out there working to help people and all emergency workers, and we deserve to go to work and be safe, whether it's in the back of the ambulance or whether it's in people's homes. We need to have the community and magistrates and everyone behind us when we go to work. You work in an office and you don't expect to be assaulted or punched in the face or pinned to the desk. So we're entitled to go to work and be safe. And this guy has taken my career away from me for the moment.
How did you feel in court yesterday when that decision was made? What was your response?
I was in disbelief. I was very disappointed. The magistrate did not make eye contact with any of us. I think it was very much about the catastrophic effects of this young guy that's done this to us. But we're human too, and unfortunately, I've been through a long road to recovery, and it's still got a long way to go before I even think about going back on the road as an operational paramedic. I think he has been treated like the victim here, and I too have been had catastrophic effects of all of this on myself.
Would it help you if you went to jail?
I don't know whether I could answer that, and I don't know whether it would make anything better for myself and my recovery. But I think the mandatory sentencing was there for a reason, just to have a safety buffer for us to go to work and be safe at work. So I think, he walked away with what he's been doing for the last 7 months. He's been out on bail and he's got a corrections order. There's no punishment for him putting the drugs in his system and punching me in the face and pinning me at the back of the ambulance. It took 3 men to get him off my partner, Sam. That stuff lives with both myself and my partner for the rest of our lives. It's not just stuff that you just get over. Sure, he's a young guy, but we too are young, and I've been a paramedic for over 9 years, and I've never been put in a situation like that before, and I hope I never will, or no one else does. But we need to have something there to to make sure we're safe.
If you don't want to talk about it, we won't, but you touched on it there, but what do you remember about that night? What do you remember about the call out with any warning signs, any of that sort of thing? Were you alert to danger?
I'm very vigilant with how I practice as a paramedic. As I said, I've been a paramedic for a long time, and I'm obviously, danger's the most important thing for us.
That's sad in itself.
Yeah, it is. Both myself and my partner had no warning signs about this gentleman. He was compliant. Obviously, he was drug affected, but we go to drug affected mental health patients a lot of the time. It consumes a lot of our workload. I popped him in the back of the ambulance and he was still compliant. I gave him the opportunity to sit in the chair and pop his seatbelt on. I didn't put him on the stretcher and put seatbelts around him to make him more agitated, even though he wasn't agitated then. I gave him every opportunity to feel safe, and he, decided to get triggered for whatever reason and come at me, and then my partner.
Were you in fear for your life?
Yeah, I was in the back of the ambulance. I was cornered. My partner initially didn't even realise what was happening, and then all of a sudden he's punched me, put me in a headlock, and he's pinned me down at the back of the ambulance. So all I could do was scream. I couldn't move my arms. I didn't even think to self-defend. I had my radio in front of me to press my duress. I couldn't get access to that. He's twisted me. He's like, it's like the amount of force that he had on me. There's no way, if my partner couldn't get him off me and struggled to get him off me, there's no way I could have gotten out of that. And
some members of the public came to help, didn't they?
Well, yeah, three bystanders saw what was happening at the outside of the ambulance, and they then realised that they had to intervene to help myself and my partner, and they got him off.
How are you coping now?
It's been a long road to recovery, both physically. He's torn a disc in my back, so I've obviously not on the road operationally because of that, and post-traumatic stress and anxiety, things that I've never ever had to. Obviously, you have it in your mind as a paramedic with the things that you're faced, that that's a possibility to have those things, but never from somebody else causing this to you. It's a long road to recovery still.
I think you told the court in your statement that even at home you don't feel safe, you don't feel secure. Is that right?
Yeah, not so much anymore, as I, see my psychologist once a week and get all the right treatment. But definitely the early stages of this, significantly unsafe. I was worried about going out in public and in great big crowds of people. And
do you want to go back to work eventually?
I do. That's the long-term goal. I'm aware, and I've had to accept that this is where I am right now, and I just have to keep working at.
Are you angry?
I am angry. I think yesterday was where I've decided, I'm really angry. I'm upset and disappointed that our safety really doesn't mean much to the court system and the justice system. And yesterday, has let us down. And that's not just me, it's everyone.
So where's your anger focused? Is it the attacker? Is it the courts? Is it the law? What is it?
I think it's all of them. Yeah.
Do you? I'm sure you were in court. You heard what the magistrate said. about drug issues, about mental health issues, about having no prior convictions, a man, and a good chance of rehabilitation. Do you feel any sympathy for this man? I mean, you're in a caring profession. Do you feel any sympathy for him, or is it beyond that?
I have empathy for, every individual, and I understand that everyone has hardships in life, and mental health is a big problem. But at what point do we, blame all of that on catastrophic assaults and things like that? I mean, you can't, you put the drugs in your system, and I think at some point, somebody has to take responsibility for that, and that's the individual that did this. Like, I don't choose to put drugs in my system and go out and hurt people. I put my uniform every day and I go to work and I help people. So I have empathy towards everyone. It's a sad situation, but at some point, somebody needs to take responsibility for this.
Monica's a paramedic, one of the victims, and the assault, which the young man under mandatory sentencing was expected to go to jail for 6 months and didn't. Tony Walker, what about your reaction? I mean, we talked the morning after this attack, and you were absolutely disgusted.
I was, and continue to be, Neil. I think, like Monica and most of the workforce yesterday, we expected to see a custodial sentence. That's what we expected to see. And so when the news came to me yesterday that from one of my senior directors who was in with Monica in the court that hadn't occurred, I was just stunned, I've got to say. I acknowledge the courts have a difficult role to do, and they've got to take into things that we don't necessarily always understand. But this legislation, a lot of work went into crafting this legislation with the support of ourselves, police, other emergency services, senior bureaucrats. The commitment to get this right was never missing, in my view. But it didn't. We didn't see yesterday.
What's not working?
Correct. Yesterday we saw there was an expectation that this is new legislation that would see a custodial sentence. That's not what occurred yesterday. And the anger you can see and feel amongst my workforce, amongst the community as a whole, is understandable in those circumstances.
The government rewrote it to remove alcohol or drugs as an excuse, because that would lead to people not being jailed when they should have been over assaults as well. Do we need to rewrite it again? Have you spoken to government about that?
So the Minister spoke to me last night, Minister Makakos, to make it very clear the government are looking at the legislation. There's actually a reconvening of the working group that did the work tomorrow. So we're meeting tomorrow to actually discuss this issue and the legislation and what's occurred. Clearly the intent hasn't flowed through with what's occurred yesterday. That said, there were provisions in this legislation deliberately to acknowledge there are some people out there with significant mental health issues that the magistrates could consider. But the issues around drugs and alcohol were not meant to be a contributory factor.
Is mental health an excuse?
Well, there's no excuse for anything. I don't think there's ever an excuse for assaulting someone in their workplace. But in crafting legislation, it was acknowledging that there are people out there with significant mental health issues that we see every day, that who haven't taken drugs, haven't done anything like that. They're unwell. They're good people in the community who are living with mental illness. They're not the people. And occasionally, if that happens, that allows the magistrate to look at that. It's not designed, in my understanding, for circumstances where people are taking drugs, taking alcohol as a precipitory cause.
Well, the legislation needs rewriting again, correct?
I agree with you. I agree. And the government have given that commitment and directly to me last night.
Monica, I assume you would like to see an appeal in this case?
Yeah, I suppose it's not for me to decide, but I think Ambulance Victoria is standing as one with the police force and other emergency workers, and I think something needs to be done, not just for myself, but for previous paramedics that have been hurt in the job, and for future paramedics and police officers that are hurt in the job. Our safety is number one, and at the moment we feel like we're not safe at work.
Tony Walker, you'd be urging an appeal, wouldn't you?
I am. In fact, we've actually written to DPP, the letter I'll be signing today, just asking him to consider an appeal. I know the Premier came out strongly yesterday recommending they consider an appeal. We would support that completely. At the end of the day, we believe that the case needs to be reviewed, and an appeal is the appropriate way to do that.
We'll take some calls in a moment. 96900 693 13 13 32. Monica, I remember talking to Paul Judd after he was attacked, and he got a similar decision, unsatisfactory decision. He was telling me people walked up to him on the street or the checkout at the supermarket to say thank you for what you do. There is no question, and that's why we'll take calls in a moment, there's no question that there is massive public support for you and people in your position. Does that give you any comfort?
Yeah, it does. Having the community back us and Ambulance Victoria and even just in the courtroom yesterday, the overwhelming response from the police officers and other people present in the courtroom yesterday, it was overwhelming. I think that's where, we worked very hard for this mandatory sentencing to be brought in. And it was a safety buffer for each and every one of us going to work, and at least, people will pay for their and take responsibility for their actions when they hurt us.
Is there anything we can do for you to help? You're obviously a brave person. You're obviously headed in the right direction. But as you say, it's tough. It's been tough, and there's a long way to go yet. Is there anything that the public can do? Is there anything that can be done to help your trip?
I think just the community needs to understand that, we deserve to feel safe 24/7 in our workplace, and the court and the magistrate and the justice system has let us down in this respect, and I feel like the victims have been shortchanged, not the perpetrator.
Well, I think you nailed it earlier when you said that the offender was being treated as the victim.
Yeah, well, the magistrate didn't make eye contact with any of us. It was very much a story about the James Haberfield and how he was going to feel about being put in prison or getting charged. There was no mention of the catastrophic effects of both myself and my partner or anyone else that's been through similar events before.
Tony Walker, thank you for coming in. And
thank you.
I admire the way you support your troops. Monica, as I said at the beginning, you're here because you're brave and you want to get a message across. Is there anything else you want to say?
Just thanks for the community support, and thanks for having us here today. And I think just everyone needs to understand that we deserve to be safe.
All the best. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you'll get there. It's going to be tough, but good luck.
Thank you.
Monica, the paramedic, and Tony Walker, Chief Executive, Ambulance Victoria.